Good morning. Welcome to Unity Spiritual Center, Pflugerville.
Good morning.
We are here to talk about today. There's a in the beginning God, and I've been thinking about that during the week, and then the meditation that Randy used and the song kind of added things together. So we'll see what comes out of that. It's really interesting to me. If you really stop and think about it, this is the beginning of the Bible. Genesis 1:1, it says, in the beginning, God. So if you stop and think about that, in the beginning. God, in the beginning, when there wasn't anything. And then the Bible goes on and said, and the earth was without form and void. So there was no thing. Everybody got it? So in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. So it means that God created everything from no thing. Now, I want you to get clear on this because I'm going to be working on understanding, okay? And in Genesis 1:37, God pauses and he looks at everything and he said, everything is good. So everything that God created, he spoke it into creation because he said, let there be light, let there be firmament, let there be this, let there be that. And it came into form of the ethers as far as we know. And at the end of it, everything was good. You got that? Now, if God created it, how did it change? Because anybody agree that everything isn't good today. So where did it come from?
Essence.
A what?
Essence. As you would say, essence.
Essence, yeah.
Essence.
See, that's the irony, because everybody's wondering what happened. And everybody's fighting and saying, it's not fair, it's not fair, and blaming other people, and even blaming God. So if you stop and think about that, though, in the beginning, God, and as far as we know, God's complete and whole. Everything that exists is perfect. And then God created an earth that was perfect and was able to create man, male and female. It says that in the Bible. And then provide a Garden of Eden where everybody lived comfortably and had enough to eat and lived together well. Then what happened again? Essence. Because during all that creation, God gave human beings the ability to make a choice. Okay? Because in Genesis 1, it does say, and God created man in his image and gave him the choice. So humans have choice. And then as far as we know, part of us made a choice to know the difference between good and evil, which is the fruit of the tree of knowledge, good and bad. Okay, now what's interesting is there's been all kinds of changes in that story over the years. For some reason it became an apple. There is no conversation about an apple. All it says is the fruit is the tree of good and evil. Okay? So humankind had the ability to make choices and all of a sudden had the ability to make a choice between good and evil. And what do we have today? We have both states of being. So who did it? Okay, so the idea is to understand who we are and where did we come from and why are we in the situations we're in. And it's really fascinating. And I've been thinking over and over and over again. I've been reading a relatively new book, I don't have it with me, Paul Brunton, and he is talking about the short path back to enlightenment. Now, awakening is returning to who we are in the Garden of Eden. In other words, we are a spiritual being living in a physical body, and the physical body was created us to walk around in the physical earth. Okay, and if you notice, everything that is created in the physical wears out. There's even a law of physics called entropy that things wear out. Anybody here have a car that lasts forever? Okay, we have flat tires, okay? And things happen. And I don't know about you, but bodies change, things happen. So we are living in a physical world that slowly goes backwards, if I can use that terminology. So who created the physical world? See, we have to stop and think about these ideas. And if we're a spiritual being living in a physical body, the idea is maybe the physical body has taken over and is running things, and we don't know it. Okay? So the question becomes, who are you? It's back to the work we're doing with the functional ministry, but who are you? And there's a conversation that I've been working on this week, and it's shown up in A Course of Love for me, showed up in Short Path Back to Enlightenment, showed up in a couple other places. And the idea of who you are. So the Bible says you're created in the image and likeness of God. So what is your idea of God? Somebody tell me. See, you can't even answer it. Because, how do you measure God? You can't. Because God is everything perfect. And God is that mental construct where everything's okay for us. We talk about harmony, we talk about wholeness, we talk about returning to the Garden of Eden. But those are all the experiences that we experience as a child of God. However, how do you describe God? Okay? And it says you're a child of God. So how do you describe you? And you understand that there's no description. Because we kind of short circuit when we get there. But the idea behind it is, you ready? Big step. The biggest step I'm realizing is understanding who we are. And that's called acceptance. You see, if you look at something, you cannot be something until you accept who that is. Okay? We have a lot of people fighting who they are in the image. I mean, we have a hard time defining. We have a whole group of people that aren't able to define who they are. Okay? So ultimately, who are we? Well, the Bible says you're a child of God, created in the image and likeness of God, complete and whole, just as you are right now today. Okay? And that's accepting who you are. And the world has trained us to not believe that. Course of Love describes it as we go into learning. We're born, and then we go into a learning state. And as a child, we learn how to speak. We learn the rules of the road, if I can use those terminologies. We learn all these things. So we slowly build up a learning that this is the way life is. And the subconscious mind stores it, just like a big database. Okay, and we start acting out of that storehouse of the rules of physical life. Problem is, we're a spiritual being. We're not a physical being. We're a spiritual being in a physical body. So we're over here working out of the physical rules, and over here, we're a child of God. So the problem is, we're accepting we're physical, and we're susceptible to all the physical rules. Like, don't get your hopes up for it, don't expect too much, you'll always be this way. There's all those conversations. And it's interesting, if you really start thinking about it, who are you, and have you been willing to accept who you are? You understand? That's kind of like taking a big step. I'm God. And that's scary, yes or no? And as a matter of fact, if you really take that in, you'll be criticized for being blasphemous. So who are you? And there's a whole group of thinking that we're playing small. In other words, if I really am a child of God, what is my potential? Who am I? What can I do? There's also another idea here which I've been playing with. It's like if I inherit a treasure, and the treasure's in a trunk, big old trunk, okay? Get in your mind, a trunk, okay? And the trunk is locked. But I've been told, because I am a son of the person that owns the trunk, that I have the right to have what's in the trunk. Everybody got it? So I'm accepting that I'm an heir of that trunk. And then the next step is, how do I get into the trunk and get the gold or whatever's in there? And you understand, until I have a key, I don't have access. So I have to believe, and I have to have access to what I've been accepted as true. It's a big, big step. And see, the world is saying, no, you don't deserve it. No, you are not that. You have to get used to being this. Okay? I can't tell you how. This keeps coming to me. I can remember. Don't expect too much. You got to be careful, Bobby. You have to understand. There's all this stuff. Okay, now I don't know what your experience is. It's mine. But I know the date you're close. and if you're a female, you have to do this, or whatever it is. You have to live according to the rules that you have learned to get along in society. Okay? And if you really are a child of God, what do you have access to? Madeline and I, in previous conversations, workshops we've done, how would you be treated and how would you think if you were an heir of the King of England? And I think, what is there, $38 billion in that kingdom? And if you were the prince or the princess, what would you have access to? What would you accept? And would you know how to get access? Yes. So how would you treat yourself? How would you presence yourself in the world? Where would you take vacations? Where would you live? How would you act? Okay? And if you're really, really a child of God, how would you act? How would you expect? What would you take? What would you accept as what is yours? And do you have access? Do you really believe you have access to those things? So we're going back to the phrase, in the beginning, God. And in the beginning, God created heaven and earth, and He created it perfect. Okay? And who created us this way, which isn't perfect? So it's a long line of human thinking through the ages. Now, we understand that DNA builds up, and I'm not going to get involved in that, but we do know DNA can be changed. So there's a lot of issues in this. But it's really, number one, believing of who we are. And by the way, I'm way off my notes. But I started thinking about the song and what Randy was saying. The word whole means everything's okay. And what would it be like to have everything okay? I mean, everything. Even car and tribes are fat. No flats. Okay. You know, something to think about, and that's who you are, who I am, who we are. But we've been trained over and over and over that it ain't true. And I even use the word ain't on purpose. Okay? So it's being willing to accept who I am and who you are, and really work on that. What kind of relationship would you have? Okay? Now, what's interesting, the song and Randy really got me thinking. All of a sudden I got it. I have to accept who I am. I also have to accept everything here. And God created everything perfect and whole. So what's my job? To accept everything just the way it is. In other words, if I use the 3 C's, criticize, condemn, and complain. Okay? And in other words, I see it, it's not physically correct. However, on a spiritual level, is it? We don't know. So the next step is, if it is whatever, if I see it, how do I see it? So it's accepting everything just as it is. And it's right back to the song we were just talking. I am complete and whole, just as I am right now. Today, I am here, I am whole, I am love. Because if I'm love, I see everything with love. So you see that when I accept, then I have to see everything as complete and whole. which then gives me the access to my child of God good. Did I say that? Who are, well, you know, I make up words, by the way. So it really is, and everything we're told, Jesus said, worry not. In other words, don't see things the way you're seeing. Okay, the kingdom of heaven is within. It's the Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom. So these words, he keeps using these words over and over again. And I keep thinking, well, I'm in a physical world and I have to fight back. I've been trained to compete. I've been trained to work hard. I've been trained that I have to do this, this, and this. But God is saying, no, you're complete and whole, just as you are. And it's up to me to start seeing that. Number one, accept I am a child of God, and then accept that I have access to that way of thinking. And once I create that way of thinking, then I create that style of life, we use the terminology. Now, in the function of ministry, one of the things I had to really admit is that I'm a nut about this, okay? Because I keep getting clearer and clearer that we are children of God. And we're all on that path back to learning that. And finally learning how to experience. The question is, how do I get there? Okay, and right now it's frustrating because I don't see a way to get there other than continuing the path. So a couple of things that I've been told. Number one, there is a path. Okay, well, we wouldn't even be together today. Number two, we have a tendency to think esoteric and mystical things have to be complicated. They have to be boo-boo, and they have to be full of intrigue. Well, maybe that's not true. Okay, maybe the truth is all I have to do is make it up and live it. Maybe I just have to see everything perfect as it really is, and stop criticizing everything and looking at only the good. Okay? And knowing that there's an answer because I am a child of God, and sooner or later I get the key to the trunk. So it's a conversation together because I'm getting more and more convinced that we support each other in that energy. Okay? When you walk in the door, you feel the energy. It's interesting. It really is. And I thank Don and Mark, by the way, for being here and setting up for us this morning. They've done it for 3 weeks, 4 weeks. So thank you. Tracy's back next week. So. But the truth is we even have to see each other perfect and whole. And how do I become perfect and whole? I hang out with people that are perfect and whole. So it's key to really be doing that.
Do you think if we carried a glass of water around all the time, it would be easier?
It's perfect. It's perfect. I mean, it's fine. Okay? See, we worry about everything. So what would it be like to worry good? Oh my God. Oh, I might be enlightened this week. Oh, what am I going to do? Okay? Oh my God, what happens if money everywhere? My health is good. What would happen if? And we play, the problem is, ready, thank you. We play the problem is what if down rather than what if up. Okay? So, I see you perfect and whole. I see you as a child of God. I see you complete and whole. I see you with love. And see, love has been, unfortunately the word love has been messed up with the word lust, if I use that terminology, and getting into that sexual romantic environment. Over here, it's a state of non-being, just non-thinking. And it is actually in the state of silence, so if we can get to that point where love transmits itself. And I'm going to go back. Remember I said that the human being, the human physical self, has set up a whole bunch of stuff in the subconscious mind, and we're acting out of that subconscious pattern that we have learned. So we can unlearn that. And part of I'm learning part of the many mystical programs are involved in unlearning what's in the subconscious mind. But I'm starting to realize that you are programmed as a child of God, so you already have the program within us at the subconscious level. It's just turning it over and allowing God. So it becomes, this is kind of what I'm working on. It becomes easier when we let go and let God instead of trying to control everything. So the old phrase, let go and let God, is right back in the beginning. So in the beginning, God, and look around. Here's God. So thank you, I'm finished. I've shared my heart with you this morning. Blessings.